welcome back to a new deep dive. And this occasion is the Behringer PROTON. This guide is like a crash course. At the description or the timeline of this video, you have all the chapters. You can learn about something today, skip this section or come back a different day to keep learning. If you like what I do, please like the video. This channel is supported by viewers only. If you want to buy me a coffee to say thanks and help the channel keep going on, you can. You have links at the description for PayPal, YouTube Thanks, and Patreon. Before we start, this synthesizer, it's pretty massive. You can do a lot. So this video, it's about the main panel and all the things that you can do with the main panel, excluding the ins and the outs. And I guess on the next week, I will upload a new video just covering all the ins and the outs that you have available. You have two oscillators, one and then the two, and both oscillators share kind of the same controls. So once you learn one, you know how to use the other one. Each oscillator can do a lot. First, you have the oscillator mix right here at the bottom. This one will select the oscillator 1, or you can go all the other way to the oscillator 2, or maybe you can blend a little bit of both. For now, I'm going to stay on the oscillator number 1. Both oscillators have a range control. If I play something and I press this, it's going to change between 8, 16, and 32s. And if I press one more, all lights are on. I'm going to tell you why in a minute. But in this case, if I am on 8, you have the tune control. And with this one, you can go up to 13 semitones up or 13 semitones down. The same thing goes for the oscillator number 2. When changing the range, at some point all the lights will be on. I'm going to keep tapping and all the lights are on. And notice that it sounds a little bit detuned. And this is because the range or the tune changes. It's not locked to a very specific range. So just by moving the range, we can sweep pretty much the whole spectrum. And this is super useful because you can use the oscillator in different ways. Maybe you can use it as an LFO if you wanted to. I'm going to put it on 8 and I'm going to kind of try to tune this. There we go. Right now we are on Z. And sometimes it's a little bit hard to tune it because you have a pretty wide range. And just like the neutron, this is a synth where you might want to have a tuner pedal around somewhere in the chain. If not, you're gonna have to tune it by ear. Now then, if you keep going down, each oscillator has a shape control. And by changing the shape, you just select one of the waveforms that you have available. And I'm gonna go all the way up on this one, and you have the tone mod, then you have a pulse, you have a saw, then you have a triangle, and then you have, the classic waveforms. You have a sine wave. In the case of the pulse, you have a width control. So you can change the width of the pulse. And of course, you can change the width of the tone mod. We can change how the shape works. Right now, if I play something, notice that I can change to the other one, and to the other one, and to the other one. And this is called the switch mode. We are switching between the different waveforms. We can change it to a different mode. And to do this, of course, you can do it on both oscillators. You need to go to the range and then just press it and hold it until it blinks. When it's blinking, the para is going to be on or off. If you turn off the para, it's off. Now you can change the shape and notice now that it's blending. Right? It's not switching, it's just blending. So you're using the blend mode. If you want to exit, just go to range and just press it, hold it, and it will go out. And now what we can do, again, we can blend the different waveforms. So you have more waveforms because now you have a combination of maybe a saw and a triangle, a combination of maybe a triangle and a sine wave. So yeah, super useful. If you want to do the same thing on the oscillator 2, you can. You just need to press and hold, and it's the same idea. If this one is on, you will be using the switch mode, not the blend mode. So just turn it off, and now if I change it, notice that we can, you do the blend. I'm gonna press range, hold, and exit. Just like I said, this is useful because you have more waveforms to choose from, but also because from within the patch bay, the ins and the outs, you can modulate this control. And, again, you can have a nice little modulation or just, get something else out of a synthesizer that uses the classic waveforms. I'm going to make sure that I am all the way on the oscillator number 1, and I'm going to stay on the saw. If I play it, notice that we get a saw, and maybe I'm going to enter the range and turn on the switch mode and get out by pressing range. If I play again, we get a saw. That's fine. So each oscillator has a sub-oscillator. And the submix control, this one on both, right? This one on the 1 and this one on the 2, blends between the main oscillator, the main waveform that we are using, and this sub-oscillator. So I'm going to play something. If this one is all the way to the right side, clockwise, we are just getting the waveform. But as I go to the other side, we start getting the sub. Right here is 50%. And if I keep going down, we will only get the sub-oscillator. The sub is going to be 1 octave down below the main oscillator. So whatever range you have, it's going to be 1 below. There's more to this. If you hold, again, the range control, I'm going to press and hold it until this one is blinking, we can choose which waveform we want to use for the sub. If I go, again, all the way down, if I press it, I'm getting kind of a sine wave, right? So that's our sub, but we can change it, and we can use the waveforms that we have on the LFO. So if I go here, now the sub is going to be a triangle, or it's going to be a saw, or it's going to be a pulse. We cannot choose this inverted saw. We can only do this 4. And this is great because, again, instead of having a sine wave, I could have something that has a little bit more, harmonics. Let's say I want to go to a pulse, and once I am ready and selected that one, I'm going to do a range to get out, and then it's, back to the main panel. And if I press, we have a sub, a square for a sub, and then I'm using a saw. Cool. Of course, the oscillator number 2 works the same way. I'm going to put it all the way on the oscillator 2. I'm using maybe a saw. I'm going to go to range and enable para so we can hear that saw. But then when I go to the range, the secondary panel of the oscillators, notice that right here I can select the sub, but this one is going to use this side of the waveforms. So if I toggle this, notice that we can select the sine, and maybe I'm going to go all the way down so we can hear the waveform. Sine wave, we get the triangle, then the saw, and then the pulse. Once you make your selection, I'm going to maybe use that one. You go to range, press and hold, and you're back to the main panel. One of the things that it was a little bit annoying on the Neutron, it was the tune pots, because they were really big, and sometimes maybe when you were doing something different, by mistake, you touch the tune and it will go out of tune. So they kind of fixed this on this synthesizer. What you can do again, if you want to disable the tune pots, you need to go to range, just press and hold, and now if you go to the sync, notice that the light on top of this one turns off. And this is because you're disabling the tune pot or this knob for this oscillator. So if I just disable it, pressing range to get out, I'm going to be playing something. Notice that we can still play it and it will be responsive to the keys that we are playing. But if I move the tune, nothing happens. I'm not changing the tune. I'm going to do the same thing with the range. I'm going to go there. And again, if we want to disable this one, we go to sync and then get out of the main screen, and both knobs are completely off, so we cannot change it. And again, to change it back, go back to range, go on sync, get out. If I go to the 2, it's the same deal. Turn on the sync, and now they're going to be completely out of tune, but that's fine. Then we have the para mode. I'm going to explain how this works in a minute. And then we have the sync mode, and this is just classic oscillator sync. Oscillator 2 will be synced to the oscillator number 1. The only thing we need to do is just go to the sync, and now, we are synced. And I'm going to be doing just a little bit of frequency, a little bit of resonance, and maybe no modulation. There we go. And this, again, will give you the classic sync sound. And for this to work, you need to offset both oscillators. If they are doing pretty much the same, you're not going to get a cool sound out of sync. Maybe you need to change maybe the shape, use something else, and especially changing the tune. This will give you again a cool sound when you use sync. maybe use different ranges. I'm gonna go here and just change it. Now we get that cool sound. And this sync is good. You know, it sounds really good when we start modulating this control. Now, of course, right now we have no direct control from the main panel to modulate this like you would on maybe most synthesizers. On this one, you need to do it through the ins and the outs. The synthesizer, it's paraphonic. This is why you get the para right now. If this one is on, it's on paraphonic mode. If it's not, it's on mono mode. For the ones that don't know what this is a monophonic type of instrument. I'm using both oscillators. The mix is around 50%, maybe around there. There you go, 50%. So now when I play a key, both oscillators will play at the same time. If I play a new key, both oscillators will play my new key, not the old one. That is that when I release it, nothing happens. So if I play one key, I play a new one, we can only play one single key at a time. That's just monophonic. We have one single voice that we can use. On paraphonic mode, the idea is the same. You still have one single voice. And this is why it's not polyphonic, it's paraphonic. When I enable this, just gonna turn it on, now you can play two keys at the same time, not just one. The oscillator section now, what we'll do when we are playing on paraphonic, it will split. The oscillator number 1 will react to one key and the oscillator 2 will react to the other key. I'm going to put the shape of the oscillator on maybe a sine wave and notice it's low. It's just kind of a super low. Maybe I'm going to put it on 16s and the other one I'm going to just maybe use a saw. Things that you need to take into account is that when you're using paraphonic mode, if you play one single key, both oscillators will play at the same time. If I play it, what is that? I get the tone right there at the bottom. You can see it on the spectrum. And then we have everything else. If I play one single key, we get both. It's not playing this oscillator alone. So we get the same result when we are not playing in para mode. When it's on para, you need to play a second key. So now if I play a new key, notice that it's changing, but I'm still holding the lower key. The one that it's changing, it's the oscillator 2, this one, not this one. The other one stays put. And this is what paraphonic means. The lower note stays stays put, but then what changes is the higher note on the oscillator 2. Can we decide on the synthesizer which oscillator plays the higher note or the lower note? Yes, we can. Let's talk about it on the next chapter. Let's talk about the note priority. It's different for mono and the paraphonic mode. It's just different. First, I'm going to go to mono mode. And remember on the oscillator number 1, I have this sine wave very low. And on the other side, I have something else with a little bit more harmonics. I'm going to put it maybe at center. To change the different modes, you need to go to sync and you need to hold it. So press and hold. And once it's on the secondary mode, notice that this one is blinking. The modes of the filter will decide which mode you're using. If I keep tapping the mode, this one is the highest, then bandpass is going to be last, and then the low pass is going to be the lowest. I'm going to stay on the high pass, and this one is the highest. And I'm going to show you why this is useful. So let's say I'm holding a key, and we are mono, right? So if I play a higher key, it's playing. It's letting me play the higher notes. Now, if I still hold this C3 note and I play a lower key, it's not playing. And it's because the priority is highest. If I change it to the other one, I'm going to go to the low pass. That one is the lowest. So now it's the opposite. If I play a higher key, nothing happens. If I play a lower key, then it's letting me do it. Nothing working. And the other one, the one at the middle, the bandpass, this one is the last. And usually this is the most common type of priority. It means that it doesn't care if it's highest or lowest. If you play it, it will play. So if I play highest, it works. If I play lowest, it will still work. To get out of this screen, go to Sync, press and hold, and it will go back to the main screen. Now, then on the paraphonic mode, it's a little bit different. You have other options. First, I'm going to enable the paraphonic mode. I'm going to go back to Sync, press and hold, and notice it remembers the mode for the mono. And now the modes for the paraphonic mode are going to be on the mode number 2 on this one. Notice that we can't change them. The low pass, this one, the one at the bottom, it's going to be oscillator 1 is the lowest and oscillator 2 is the highest. Then if I go to the high pass, this is the opposite. Oscillator 2 is the lowest and the 1 is the highest. So let me just show you first. I'm going to go to this one and the low pass, and this one is the oscillator 1 is the lowest and oscillator 2 is the highest. So if I play one single key, remember, it's going to play both at the same time. If I go down, that's the sine wave. If I go up, we'll get everything else. So I'm gonna put it somewhere in between. So now if I play a higher key, which one is changing? It's changing the low, or the oscillator number 1 in this case. If I play a lower key, it's not changing, it's changing the oscillator 2, right? So play a lower key, the oscillator 2 is the one shifting, and on the other one, the oscillator 1 is shifting. So this one, again, is the oscillator 2 is the lowest, and the 1 is the lowest, and the 2 is the highest. And I know it's just a little bit confusing. If I go to the other one, it's just the opposite. I'm gonna play it, you get the same thing. Now, oscillator 2 is the lowest, and the 1 is the highest. So if I play a new key, which one is changing? This one. 2, which is the opposite of what we just did. And if I play a lower key, which one is changing? Is the 1. Now maybe you're new to this, and just for you to realize, I'm going to just play the difference. I'm going to play something, and if I play something, and if I go to the other one, I'm going to do the same thing. Completely different. Right? Now then the other one, the one in the middle, the band pass, it's just, different. It means that the oscillator 1 plays the first note, and then oscillator 2 will play the second. Let me just show you. I'm going to play the C, and if I play higher, the one changing is the 2, right? I'm going to do the same thing, but I'm going to play below the C, and the oscillator 1 always stays put. Now it's time to talk about the filters, and notice how much we did with the oscillators. And we just covered this section. We still need to cover everything else. So yeah, this synth can do a lot. You have 2 independent filters, and they work pretty much the same. The one is at the top, and the filter 2 is at the bottom. You have the same controls on both filters. Since you have 2 filters, you have your filter mix. I'm gonna play something, and if it's all the way counterclockwise, you're using just the filter number 1. If I go to the other side, we're only getting the filter number 2. And if I put it somewhere in between, we're using both filters, right? So if I do something on this one and then something on this one, we can hear the effect because we are using a blend of both. Again, if I go to the left, it's just the 1, and if I go to the right, it's just the 2. So when we generate a sound, the sound goes to both filters. At the end of the stage, they will sum together, and we can get a combination or a blend of both. So this opens the possibility for you to create really cool sounds, especially when you're 50%, because this oscillator can do something like this, the other one can do something completely different. And also we have the modulation, we will talk about this in a minute, and we can get really cool sounds. Cool. Now for now I'm going to go all the way down, and we need to go over the rest of the controls, and I'm going to go to the filter number 1. On both filters, you have a high pass, a band pass, and a low pass. And you change the modes by pressing the mode. I'm going to put it on low pass, and on this one we chop the higher frequencies, as you can see. Then the other one is going to be the high pass, which we chop the lower frequencies, and then we have a band pass. And of course, for all of these modes, the resonance is really important, especially the bandpass. But if I go maybe to a low pass, we can hear that the resonance has a good range and it's pretty cranky. If I go into extremes, it's really, really expressive, let's say. Since the resonance can go really wild, you have an option right here that says soft. And for now, I'm just gonna go again. I'm gonna go wild. Maybe it's too much. If I go to the soft and enable it, it's gonna soften the resonance. This goes crazy, a little bit less. So this is a soft mode that we get for the resonance. And also notice that you have two lights, one on the one and one on the two. So when this one is off, it means that the soft mode for both is off. If I do this, the soft is only on for the filter number 2. And if I go to the bottom, this one is on only for the filter number 2. I'm going to go down on resonance and all the way up on frequency. Just like any other synthesizer, the cutoff can be modulated by something. And we can modulate it with the LFO that we have at the bottom, or we can modulate with an envelope. And the envelope is going to be the envelope number 1, with an ADSR, is the one at the top. The envelope depth will decide how much we modulate the frequency. I'm going to put it maybe around there so we can see the movement. There we go. And now all the way, this one is all the way down, so if I play something, nothing happens, but as I do more, it's going to modulate the filter or the cutoff a little bit more. Now we need to do something right here, and right now I have nothing. There we go. And this is standard ADSR. We're going to talk about the envelopes in a minute. But of course you can go really wild, this one, all the way up. Or maybe you can do a little bit less. And get a little bit less modulation. All the way down, there's no modulation. Now the other modulation source is going to be, of course, the LFO, which is going to be the mod depth. And this is pretty simple. As I go up, it's going to use an LFO. Which LFO? Well, the ones that we have at the top, at the bottom. Right? More depth, more modulation. We are going to talk about the LFOs in a minute. For now, I'm going to go all the way down. The other thing that you have right here is going to be the key. Almost all synthesizers have this feature. So when you tap it, it's going to enable it for the 1, it's going to do it for the 2, or it's going to do it for both. And if you tap it again, it's going to turn it off. And if you don't know what keyboard control is, it means that it will listen to the keys that we play, and it will kind of make the cutoff, or just kind of move the cutoff frequency so it can be a little bit brighter, and we can hear the higher frequencies. So for now, let me just give you an example. I'm going to just turn it off, and I'm going to play higher keys all the way down. What is that? For down, I'm going to go down in resonance. There we go. So, and I'm playing higher keys. I'm going to turn it on, and if now it's on, but this is brighter. And this is because it's listening to my keys, the range I'm playing, the notes. So if I play higher notes, the filter will open a little bit more so we can hear the brighter or higher frequencies. And it will just go down as we play lower frequencies. If this is off, it's of course super dark because the cutoff, it's not moving, it's not listening to our keys. And this is something that, again, exists on pretty much all synthesizers. I'm going to, for now, just turn it off for both filters. Now, you also have a noise right here. It's a noise generator, and this is, again, super simple. It's just a noise. If I play it, we're going to get that. And if I go up on this one, what do we get? We get noise. Usually the noise, usually it's on the oscillator section, but I guess this is just way too crowded, so they put it right here. Now this doesn't mean that the oscillator comes after the filter. If I go noise all the way up, the noise, it's feeding to the filter. So if I cut, it's cutting the noise as well. So the noise is before the filters. The only difference is just right here at the end of the filters. I know it's a little bit confusing, but I guess that they kind of did this because the lack of space. I'm going to go down in the noise, make sure that we are using the filter number 1 for now. I'm going to open the frequency, no resonance, nothing. I'm going to kind of leave everything at default on both oscillators, because now I need to talk about the mod depth and what we can do with the LFO. And right here, you need to pay attention. So like I said, the mod depth will modulate the frequency. If I play something, I'm going to go down a little bit, and now I'm going to go up on the mod depth, and it's going to modulate the cutoff with the LFO. So the filter number 1, the one at the top, it's listening to the LFO 1, which is the red one, the one at the left. If I change the rate, notice it goes slower. If I go faster, it's going to go faster. So LFO 1 is the modulation source for the mod depth of the filter number 1. The other one, if I go all the way to the other side on the filter mix, now I'm just using the filter number 2, maybe it's just too much resonance. I'm going to go down on this one, and I'm going to go up on the depth. And if I change the rate of the 1, nothing happens because the filter 2 is linked to the LFO 2. I go up, now we are modulating the filter with the LFO 2. So filter 1, LFO 1, filter 2, LFO 2. Like I said before, this is kind of a super useful because now you have two different filters that can do something completely different, and also they are responsive, or they respond to maybe different rates on just two different LFOs that can do different things, and you start getting this cool different motions. Cool, right? Maybe if I go a little bit more aggressive on this one, because now we have a different pattern. If I press the link, you have the red on the filter 1. If I press again, you have the white on the number 2. And if I press again, it's going to go off. It's not like the other ones where you have one, the other one, or both at the same time. Is a little bit different. So I'm going to go just to the 1, and I'm going to, for now, I'm going to go all the way down in the mix just to use the filter number 1. No depth, no modulation, no resonance, and the frequency all the way up. And I'm going to do the same thing with the other filter, all the way down on the resonance, all the way up on the filter, no mod depth and no envelope depth. When the link is red, it means that both oscillators will now react to the LFO number 1. I'm going to put it on filter mix, 50%, and I'm going to be maybe doing a little bit of cutoff and a little bit of cutoff right here. If I play something, I'm going to do mod depth on the 1, and now mod depth on the 2. Notice that there's no difference, and if I alter the rate of the number 2, notice that nothing happens. It's just listening to this one. Again, red, it means that it will use just this one. Now you could assume that if I go to link 2 and the white is on, it will listen to the LFO 2, but no, that's not the way it works. When the link is white, it means that it will still respond to the LFO number 1, but the phase is inverted. And it's inverted for the filter number 2. I'm gonna just go here and go down on the filter mix. We are listening just to the number 1. If I play it, I'm gonna go to a saw. I'm gonna go around there. I guess that's fine. So now I'm going to go to the other one, to the filter number 2, and notice it moves a little bit different. We are doing the same amount of mod depth. Maybe I'm going to do a little bit of resonance and a little bit of resonance on the 1. So this one is moving like this, and the other one, it's moving like that. And it's because, again, we are using a saw. And since it's inverting the instruction, the phase is inverted, is going to do this. The one at the bottom is doing the opposite. Now, when we blend both, we have a different motion for 1 and the 2. And again, this can give you cool movements because both are doing the same but the opposite at the same time. If I maybe go to the inverted, now it's the same but backwards. The one is going up, the other one is going down. Right? I go down in the filter mix. When We can see it on the one, that's the one. If I go to the other one, it's different. Same thing, but different. It's doing the opposite. Cool. If you connect the synthesizer to a computer and you open the app that you get from the website, you can access to the SynthThrive application, which is the companion app. And right here, you can do a lot of things. In this case, we are talking about the filter. So you have one option for every single section that you can change. If I keep scrolling down, you have the VCF. And notice that you have a lot of different options. It says VCF1, which is the filter 1, modulation source, and then the modulation depth. This means that you can modulate the cutoff with something else. In this case, right here, you have the source. You can modulate with velocity, the mod wheel, or aftertouch. And once you select a source, then you can go right here and select the depth, how aggressive you want to modulate the cutoff. It's nice to do it from an application, but sometimes you don't have an application around. You can enable this from the main panel. It's a little bit confusing because, you don't have a screen. I'm going to go and just use the oscillator number 1 alone. I'm sorry, the filter number 1 alone. So I'm going to put everything at default. If I play it, we get just default. Cool. To access these options, you need to go to the filter mode, press and hold, and this one will blink. So now we are on the secondary panel of the filters. Now with the LFO select, we need to choose a waveform, and depends on the waveform that we select, that's going to be the source. So the sine wave, it's no source. If I go to the triangle, this one is going to be velocity. If I go here to the saw, this one is the mod wheel or CC1. And if I go to the pulse or square, this one is aftertouch. I'm going to choose the triangle, which is velocity. Now, the other thing is going to be the depth or intensity. To change the intensity of how much you want to modulate the frequency with whatever is that you select right here, you need to go to shift. You press the shift and it will take you to the other option, and is the depth or intensity. And from factory, the depth is all the way down. It's all the way down on 0. And you need to scroll this control. And you need to scroll a lot. If I go up, notice that it's going to start changing this value. So this is the intensity. So now in theory, my controller with velocity, because I'm using the triangle, is going to modulate the cutoff this much when I play the keys. I'm going to put it right there. I'm going to put the frequency around 50%, right? And now if I go to my keyboard and I play soft, it does almost nothing. But if I play hard, now my velocity is affecting or modulating the frequency. So soft. And if I go hard, it's going to modulate more, and soft less. Like I said before, you can use velocity, you can use your mod wheel, or maybe aftertouch. Back on the panel, notice that the mode is still blinking because we are still on the panel. If you want to, again, to modulate, to change the depth, you do it with this one. To get out, you do shift again, and you're back to select the type of modulation or the modulation source. And if you want to get out of here, for now, I'm going to select none. I'm going to go to mode, press and hold, and it will get out. Now, can you do the same thing for the oscillator 2? I'm sorry, the cutoff, the filter number 2. Yeah, it's just the same thing. Go and press mode, is going to start blinking, and now it's the same idea, but with this side of the LFO. You can choose between none, then velocity, then aftertouch. I'm sorry, this one is the mod wheel or CC1, and then aftertouch. And notice that there's nothing on the inverted saw. And to change the depth is the same deal. Press shift, and then you need to scroll to the other side. Just scroll until you get more depth. There we go. You need to scroll a lot, but that's fine. I'm gonna get out of the screen, go back to this one. I'm going to select none, and to get out, press and hold the mode, and now you're back to your main panel. Let's talk about the envelopes. You have two, the 1 and the 2. And we know that the number 1 controls the modulation of the frequency that we have on the envelope depth. The ADSR2, the one at the bottom, controls the VCA, is in charge of the VCA, controlling how the volume and the sound goes out. If you don't know how an ADSR works, look it up. You have tons of examples, and I guess this video is just way too long to do it right here. But yeah, it's a traditional ADSR. On both envelopes, you have the F and S. This one is fast and slow. If the light is off, it means that it's on fast mode, which is the normal mode. If you press this, you can toggle this to on, or maybe this one to on, or both are going to be on. And this one is the slow mode. So on fast, when everything is off, the times are just really standard. It's nothing super crazy. If I do something like that, it's just slow, but it's not, again, not crazy. And if I maybe add a little bit of release, less sustain, again, more release, maybe decay up. Again, the times are not crazy in terms of release. This is why this is just the normal mode. Now the thing is that, again, you have the other one, the slow, and the slow, it's really slow. I'm gonna just turn it on both. And I'm gonna be going maybe on 50, a little bit more than 50% on the release. And if I play a key, and I'm not holding, times are really long. And if I go a little bit more, it just stays up there because the times are really slow. I'm not playing new keys. It takes a long time to go down. I'm gonna go back to normal mode because the other one is just way too long. Since by nature, this synthesizer is a monophonic instrument, we have the retrig option. When this is off, when the retrig is off, it means that the envelopes will not retrigger when we are holding a key. For example, I'm gonna go down on the release, maybe just a little bit, no sustain all the way down, and maybe a little bit of decay around 40% and no attack. If I play and hold the key, maybe a little bit more decay. I'm gonna play a key and hold it, and when I play new keys, since I'm holding a key, the envelopes will not fire again. This is normal. It's usually how a monophonic synthesizer works. But you can go here, turn the one on, or the two on, or both on. And now when I play a new key, it doesn't care I'm holding a key. When I play a new key, it will re-trigger the envelopes. That's why it's called, of course, re-trigger. And okay, let's talk about the levels section. Right here you have levels and then the VCA. So levels is just, simple. You have the main volume. It's just the main volume. You have the external level in. If you patch in on the patch bay something external, maybe a synthesizer, guitar, whatever it is that you want to put, right here you can go up in level of that signal. And when you press a key, the MIDIs or the lights will let you know when you have an incoming MIDI signal. The sound that comes from the oscillators is going to go from to both of the filters. That's why we use a filter mix. And if I use 50% on the filter, both filters will go out to the VCA. And the VCA, we know it's controlled by the envelope number 2. Why am I telling you this? It's because I need to explain how the VCA bias works. If the bias, it's all the way down on the number 1. I'm going to use the number 1 right now. If it's all the way down, it's going to work as it's supposed to. We play a key, the envelopes will re-trigger, and it will let the sound pass. What we can do is we can go all the other way on the bias, and it will kind of let the sound pass. And I'm, again, not playing a key. I'm not playing a key. So it's keeping it open. And if I play new keys, it's still listening to the keys, and it is still listening to the ADSR at the bottom. But that's what it does. It's going to open or kind of leave it open. If I go somewhere in between and I leave it at 50%, we're using kind of both. It's open, but it's more reactive to the envelope, and all the way down the envelope, it's in full control. This is the normal operational setting on pretty much any synthesizers. And some other synthesizers, they don't even give you the bias, so you cannot leave them open. And if you get it on other synthesizers, you only get one single bias. On this one, you get 2 VCA bias. Why? What's the difference? Now, the second VCA bias, we cannot hear it unless we use the patch bay. But the number 2 is a little bit different from the number 1. The bias number 1, what it listens to, it's whatever that comes out of the synthesizer, the oscillators, both filters. It listens to the mix of the filters then go to the bias, the VCA1, and then goes out. The number 2 is different. It will only listen to what comes out of the filter number 2. So it's not really listening to the filter mix. It only listens directly to the number 2. So let me give you an example. We need to use the patch bay. If not, it's just impossible because it's not connected. We need to wire it. We need to take the VCA2, which is this one, and it's equal to the VCA2 bias. I'm going to get it. I'm going to just plug it in, and we need to put it somewhere. In this case, I'm going to go to the out in. By doing this, we are just kind of bypassing the normal or default operation, which is, listening to the VCA1. I'm going to go here and just listen to what's going on the VCA2. Notice that it's all the way open. I'm just going to close it. So now if I play something, we can still hear something, but it's a little bit different. If I go to the mix 1, I'm going to move it right here and I play. It sounds pretty much the same. If I go here to the frequency and I change it, maybe resonance, nothing happens. So it's not listening to the filter number 1 because now we are using the VCA2 that only listens to the frequency or the filter number 2. If I do something right here, it's working. So, now the sound goes to filter number 2. Then, of course, still listens to the envelope. If I do a little bit of envelope 2, notice that the VCA2, it's still reactive to the envelope 2. And of course, we can leave it open. So if we recap about this, whenever we use the VCA1, it's going to listen for both filters to the filter mix, actually, and then it goes to the filter, uses the filter, and then goes out. If we only use the VCA2, it's only listening to the filter number 2, still uses the envelope, and then goes out. Why should we care about the VCA2 bias? Well, you can use it as a sound source. You can use it as a modulator, or maybe you can use it to feed it back to the synthesizer and, get some crank out of it. I'm going to go to, again, VCA2, I'm going to patch it in. And now, again, I could use this to whatever. And I'm going to go to the external signal in. So I'm just feeding it back to the synthesizer. I'm going to go and plug it in. Let me just put everything on default. No filter, no resonance, and then no mod depth, no anything. It's just default. And I'm going to keep the filter mix on maybe 50% and no noise. And the external level is all the way down. If I play something, it's going to sound like this. Let me do no envelopes. There we go. If I play it, nothing crazy. I'm going to go up on this one. As I do so, notice that the sound changes as I'm feeding it back. So now what I can do, maybe I can leave this one open and I can just make some changes right here and it will just sound, again, super crushed. Maybe a little bit of attack, a little bit of modulation. If I remove what we are feeding it back, notice it sounds different. I'm gonna go up. And this is just one possible use. Now it's time to talk about the LFOs. You have one LFO and then two LFO2. And notice that you have a shift button. If it's red, it means that you're controlling the red LFO or the LFO number 1. If I press the shift, you are controlling the other LFO, which is the LFO2. Some controls like the rate and the depth are independent, right? So this one is the LFO1 and this ones are the LFO2. But some other controls like this knob and the retrig and the sync and the one shot, they are shared controls. This is why, again, you need to press the shift to toggle between the 1 and the 2. I'm gonna for now stay on the red one, the number 1. Let's quickly review or just go over the most basic controls. I'm gonna do a little bit of mod depth on the frequency so we can hear it. If I play it, we can hear the modulation. And you can of course see it on the screen. So we are using the number 1. If we change the rate, it's gonna go faster or you can go slower, right? Then the depth is how aggressive it is. If I go down, there's nothing going on. And of course, notice that I'm changing the rate, but the light's not changing. This is because the depth is all the way down. As you go up on the depth will let you know, the light will let you know what you're doing or how the shape is. Alright, so then you have the big knob, the big one, and this one changes the waveform. You can use a sine wave, you can use a triangle, a saw, a pulse, and then an inverted saw. Of course, the LFO2 shares the same controls, just the same. When you tap it, now you're controlling this one. You can change the the waveform, and then the rate, and then the depth. It works exactly the same. Let's talk about the not so simple parts of this LFO. I'm going to use the LFO1, the red one. The waveforms, just like the oscillators, we can make them blend. Right now, if I move this, we are using the switch mode. But we can change it to blend mode. I need to go to one shot and then press and hold, and this will take us to the secondary panel. And to toggle the mode, I need to go to para. If this is on, we are using the switch. If I turn it off, we are using the blend. And to get out, I need to press and hold. It will get out. And now if I do this, notice it's using the blend instead of the switch, just like, what we did with the oscillators. To change it back, again, you can go to the one shot, press and hold, and you enable the para, and you're back into switch mode. Let me just do it again. I'm going to go here and just show you something. I want you to notice that if I'm using the blend mode on the number 1, that doesn't mean that we are changing it for the number 2. I'm going to press shift. Now I'm controlling the number 2. If I change this, notice that it's still using the switch and not the blend. So both LFOs are independent. So this takes us to how can we change it for the LFO number 2. I could assume that since we are on the white one, LFO 2, we can go to one shot and do the same deal. No, it's a little bit different. You need to go to the re-trick. I'm going to press the re-trick, press and hold, and now we are on this same, secondary panel, but for the LFO 2. If I turn off the para, now we are on blend mode. And to get out, press and hold, and now we can do blend on the LFO 2. Yeah, it's a little bit confusing. As you will see, the LFOs are the most confusing part of the whole synthesizer. For now, I'm just going to go back to re-trick, and I'm going to just get out of the blend mode, just use the switch mode. I'm going to do the same for the LFO, one shot, press and hold, then enable the para, and then to get out, one shot. Now, the next option is going to be the one shot. Now, I'm going to play it. I'm going to press and hold a key. Of course, it's just not doing one shot. Usually, what one shot means, it means that if I play one key, it will just trigger or use one cycle of the LFO. If I press it, one shot is enabled. I'm going to play one key, still the same, it's not doing anything, right? And I'm gonna put it on a saw, not doing anything. So the one shot is not working. Well, the thing is that to use one shot, what we know as a traditional one shot LFO, we need to do sync. Once we do sync and both are enabled, then I'm getting the one shot. It's only using one cycle of the LFO to do the modulation. And now it's working like it's supposed to. In theory, if I read or see sync, it means that this is syncing to whatever MIDI clock or whatever other source I'm using. Now, to show you how this works, this synth is connected to my DAW, my computer, and I am sending MIDI clock to this synthesizer. I'm going to disable the one shot, but I'm going to keep the sync. So in theory, it should be synced to my DAW, right? Because I'm sending MIDI clock and this should catch it. If I play and hold and I change the BPMs of my session, it's not really synced. It's not changing the rate. So it's not syncing. This is because you need to enable it first on a second panel on each LFO. And again, you can sync each LFO independently if you want to. And to access to the second panel, it's the same deal, one shot for the LFO1, retrig for the LFO2. I'm going to go to one shot, press and hold, and now we are on the second panel of the LFO1. To enable the sync, I'm going to need to go to sync and then enable. And to get out of the secondary panel, press one shot and get out. And notice that the sync on the main panel is on. Now I'm going to do the same. I'm going to just play. Notice it's different. Already it's different. So now it's synced. I'm going to change the rate. And if I go to my session and change the BPMs, notice it's synced. So it's reactive because it's synced. And of course, if I go to the rate, now this one it's using divisions. So now I'm going to do the same. I'm going to go to sync and just turn it off. If I play it and change the BPM on my session, this is synced. So with this, I could assume that this button does nothing, because if I need to sync it, the one that is really making the LFO sync is the one that we have on the second panel. And I'm going to just hold and just go back. So again, this is just a little bit confusing. If I do one shot, it's not really working. I just need to enable the sync. And if I really want to sync, I really need to enable a secondary panel in order to make it work. And this is just, you know, a little bit weird if you think about it. To do the other one, the LFO2, well, again, it's just the same thing. I need to go to retrig to enter to the LFO2. And then again, here we can do sync and it will be synced. The LFO2. And to get out, we can get out. Now, maybe I am the one not getting something right because, you know, doing all of this is just a little bit redundant. But there's no information on the manual about this. The manual is super confusing and it's kind of bad. Behringer is getting better, maybe a little bit better at creating operating manuals. But still, the manual has typos all over the place. Some sections are really wrong. So I cannot give you a straight answer of why this works this way. The manual doesn't explain this again very well. And I don't have direct contact with Behringer, so I cannot ask them. At first, I thought that my synthesizer was broken, but I saw other people, you know, doing the same thing. So, you know, it's just the way it works. It's a little bit weird, but, you know, if you think about this, having this feature is really cool because you can sync this one, maybe not this one, and have this one go really free, and you get, again, interesting motions. I'm gonna maybe put the rate around there, maybe 40%. Now then we have the retrig, and when this one is on, it means that when we play a key, the LFO cycle will reset to the beginning. And to make this work, we need to enable sync. Yes, I know. So if I play it, notice that this one, the light of the LFO, it's always restarting from the beginning. If I just press one key and hold, it's not restarting. Maybe I'm gonna make it slower. I'm pressing and holding. Now every time I play, when the retrig is on, it will always restart from the beginning of the cycle. And this is useful because you can, if I play the same, it's going to be a little bit weird because the LFO will never retrig. So it's a little bit more inconsistent. If you want to do something like this, where you want to play and you hold and then you get the modulation, well, the retrig is just what you need to use. Both LFOs can have a variable rate depending on the keys we play. We can enable this by going to the one shot on the LFO number 1, and then again, like we did before, to the retrig if we want to access the number 2. So I'm going to go and do it on the number 1. I'm going to press and hold. Once we are on the secondary panel, then the big knob is going to decide the depth. Notice that if I keep scrolling, we can change the depth. And this again changes the rate when we play the keys. So right now I have absolutely nothing, no modulation depth. So I'm going to cut a little bit of the frequencies, a little bit of resonance, and I'm going to do a little bit of mod depth. And if I play it, we're going to get something like that, which is fine. Now the rate, I'm going to go up a little bit. And now what I'm going to do, since the depth of the modulation is a little bit up, if I play higher keys, it goes faster. As I go down, it's going to go slower. So we have a variable rate. depending on the keys we play. If I go up, higher keys will make it go faster and faster. If I keep going up, faster and faster. Like before, the LFOs are independent. If I want to keep this, I just need to press and hold to get out. And if I want to do the same thing on the LFO number 2, I just need to go to Retrick and then use the knob, the big one, to set the intensity. Let's talk about the Wavefolder. It's a very simple Wavefolder, not super aggressive, but it can help you to get more tones out of this synthesizer. I'm going to use the oscillator number 1, so the mix all the way down, and then I'm going to maybe change the shape to a triangle. So if I play something, maybe I'm going to go down, we get a triangle. To use the Wavefolder, we need to select a mode. If it's on BP, it means that the Wavefolder is completely out of the chain. We are not using, because BP, it's bypass, not band pass, it's bypass. So if I press 1 time, it's going to go to AM. This is the amplitude modulation mode. I'm going to take the folds all the way up. I'm going to explain why in a minute. The sim one, if I play something, does completely nothing. It's disabled. It doesn't work on AM mode. The only thing we can use right here is the folds. The folds pretty much is the level or the input level. So I can go up, all the way up. Right now it's up. If I go down, it's going to go down in amplitude. This is why it's AM. We can go up and down in amplitude. If we go to the patch bay, I'm not going to do it, but if we go to the patch bay and we maybe take the LFO and we patch it to the folds will just do something like this. If you think about this, it's a tremolo. You can get a tremolo out of this. If you go super fast, it will give you a different type of sound. That's how AM works. Now then we have the 1.5 and then the 1. First, I'm going to go to the 1.5. And I'm going to keep the folds all the way up and the sim maybe all the way up. The sim stands for symmetry. And if I play it, what is it? We already get something out of this control because we are on the half. So moving this control will change the symmetry. And we change the waveform. This is the full Wavefolder into effect. And I'm taking a very simple, triangle, and I'm just, getting different tones. And that's why we would use the wave. Take a super dumb triangle, and we get more harmonics. Just a different tone out of a simple triangle. That's the plan. Now, always remember that the sim will be affected by the folds. This one changes the input. So when we use it, it changes the folds. Or the sim in this case. Now, the 1, 2, it means that we are using half. If I go to 1, the sim is going to be a lot more aggressive. And we get, a different tone. Again, using the folds, we'll change it. Really cool. Now, right now we are using a simple triangle just to get more out of this. But if you use different waveforms, you combine different waveforms, and then you go to the Wavefolder, again, you will be getting different tones out of whatever it is that you're generating. And also on the patch bay, you have the ins and the outs for the Wavefolder. So maybe you can just remove it out of the path. You can maybe input a different sound and then feed it back to the synthesizer. You can do a lot of things. But if you don't patch it, you can affect the waveform just like we are doing right now. You get something simple. And if you don't want it on the path, you just go to BP and it's going to be completely bypassed. In addition to your 2 ASR envelopes, you get 2 ASR envelopes. You need to use the patch bay. If not, you cannot use them. They're completely disconnected from the main circuit. So again, you need to use some cables. Before you use it, some controls are shared and some controls are independent. In the case of the envelope 1, well, you have attack and release, and then for the 2, you have attack and release as well. But then all of these buttons are shared. And if they're off, it means that they're not on. But notice that when I press it, it's red. And this is because the red one belongs to the 1, just like the LFO. If the red is on, you're using the 1. And this one is the same. If the red is on, you're using the envelope number 1. To change it, to go to the other panel, to the envelope 2 panel, you just go to Shift, you press it, and now you're on the 2. And notice that if I press something, it's going to be white. So it's going to be red for 1 and white for 2. To make it work, we need to do some patching. So I'm going to take the out of the ASR 1. Here it is. And now this envelope needs to modulate something. And I could go maybe to pitch, whatever. I can go whatever I want. I'm going to use the VCF frequency. So I'm going to go right here and tap it into the VCF1 frequency. Now this envelope, it's trying to modulate this control. Since we are connecting to the VCF frequency, it's kind of disabling the default connection of the mod depth that's being used by the LFO. So if I play something and I maybe chop some frequencies, do something like that, and I go up on the mod depth, this one should be listening to the LFO. And if I disconnect it, we can hear the LFO. But if I connect it, nothing happens. It is because now it's listening to the envelope. Still, in this case, for the frequency, because we are using this one, the mod depth will act as an attenuator for the ASR. But that's fine. Let's just use it. I'm going to play a key. And notice that we are getting a modulation. If I go down on this one, I get absolutely nothing. So it's modulating the cutoff. How? Well, with the attack and the release. The attack can be slow. And we get a slow attack. For now, I'm going to go to no release. Very slow attack. And if I go down on the attack and we get a different release, we get a different motion. It's just an envelope. Just like the other ones. No things that you don't have an ADSR, you have an ASR. If I press and hold, of course, there's just no sustain. To get sustain, you need to go to the sust. So if I press it and enable it, I'm going to press it, and notice that it stays right there at the top. As soon as I release, of course, it should be going back, but there's no release right here in the envelope, so we never hear the release. And there we go. Now we can hear it. The fun part begins when we go to the other buttons. We have the loop, and the loop, what it will do, it will make the envelope cycle or just loop, like an LFO. Right here, the attack and the release, they will affect the loop because they are time-based controls. So if I make it short, it's going to get faster. If I make it slow, it's going to be, slower. But that's it. Now then, I'm going to go to off, and I'm going to go to the bounce. The bounce, it's like a back and forward type of deal. I'm going to enable this. If I play it, you could assume that it's doing the same thing than the loop, but it's not. It's back and forwards. If we have different times right here, it has a uneven motion because it's going back and forth. Now then we have the inv. This is the invert or inverted. By default, this envelope, it's positive. So if I'm maybe going to 50%, when I modulate this control, it's going to go up and then it's going to go down to the initial position. That's what it's doing. If I invert it, now it's going to be negative. Instead of going up, just like this, it's going to go down, and then it's going to go back to the initial position. So if I play it, that is that we almost get kind of a click, and then it goes back. So maybe it's a good idea to have it up, and then we get, again, a different modulation. A lot of synthesizers can invert the envelope, and this is what you can do with this one. I'm gonna, for now, turn it off. And then the rev, it's interesting. What it does is gonna turn the attack to release and the release to attack. It's inverting the controls and of course the times. And this function, for now, I'm just gonna turn it on. There's the difference. If I just play, it's gonna do that. And if I turn it on, it's backwards. And this is a cool thing to enable and disable. Maybe or in combination of other buttons, because that's the other thing that you can do with the envelope. You can turn on the loop, maybe do invert and then bounce it at the same time. And then you will, of course, get a kind of a different motion. You're combining the different ones. And you need to do a little bit of experimentation right here. The thing that you need to know is that when you go to sustain, even if you have other options, sustain, it pretty much stays all the way up. So you're killing the loop and the bounce. It's just not working. Let me turn everything off. And the other thing that you get is going to be the re-trick. Just like the other re-tricks, when you play a key and you're holding and you play a new one, it will not re-trigger. Now if I play a key and I play a new one while holding a key, it's just not going to re-trigger the envelope. If I enable this, I play a one, hold it. When I play a new key, it's just gonna re-trigger. That's the plan. So like I said before, try different combinations, maybe not that one, but just try different combinations that will give you different results. And sometimes you're not gonna get something cool. Still, you need to experiment. This is the whole point of a semi-modular type of synthesizer, or even a modular type of synthesizer, is the experimentation. Before we finish, I want to show you that you have a split mode. It only works when you are on paraphonic and you have the last note priority enabled. Split mode means that we can set a split key like C4, for example. And below C4, it will play the oscillator number 1, and when you play a VOB, the C4, it will play the oscillator number 2. I know it sounds simple, but there are some gotchas that you need to know. I'm going to put both on range of 8, right? Both oscillators on 8. And then I'm going to be using different waveforms so we can identify which one is playing what. On the oscillator 1, I'm going to be using a sine wave. And on the number 2, something like a tone, like the tone mod, something a little bit more aggressive that we can really identify. And I'm going to put the mix right at 50%. Make sure that the width is at the center, and we are only using the waveform with no sub. To enable the split, make sure that you are on paraphonic, and then you need to go to range. Just press and hold. Once this one is blinking, you need to press the key that will be the split. I'm going to press C4. That's going to be my split. Once I'm holding and you need to hold the key, I'm going to just press the mode. And notice that this one turns on, and I can safely release the key. To get out of here, I'm going to press and hold the range, and it's back to normal mode. Maybe the resonance is just way too much. I'm going to be playing a key, and here is the trick. I'm going to play one key at a time. When I do so, I want you to hear that that's the sine wave that we have at the bottom, and that one is going to be the tone mod, right? So we can identify both. I'm going to put the mix right at the center. And I'm going to play a key that's below the C4 that we set as a split. That's it. It's below the C4. So if I again go to this, that's the sine wave oscillator 1. And if I go up, everything above is going to be the oscillator 2. Again, at the center. So now if I play a higher key that goes above the split, notice that the one changing is the tone mod. It works when I never release the second key. Notice how I'm playing. I'm never releasing before I play the next one. The tone mod, the sub, or the oscillator 1, always stays at the bottom. So that's how the split mode works, and I know this can be a little bit confusing. I did a little bit of research on the web before planning this video, and there's a little bit of confusion. What's the confusion? Again, when you do the split, below your split point, it will only play, people think that it will only play the oscillator number 1, and that's not the case. If I play one single key at a time, both oscillators will play. But now you know that when you play below, it's going to keep the oscillator number 1 if you play above the split point. And okay, so up to here. Notice how long this video was. And this is because this synth can do a lot. Even without using the patch bay, we can create a lot of sounds. Now, I cannot recommend this synthesizer for beginners. Still, you know, you can use it. But since you have a lot of things that you can use, it can be a little bit confusing. Maybe a Model 15 or even a Model D is a good option as your first synthesizer. But if you want more extra options and, you know, want to do more things, well, this one, it's the best choice. And like I said before, it's funny how arguably the best Behringer synthesizers are the Neutron, the DeepMind, and the Proton, which are not clones of something else. So yeah, you get a lot of bang for your buck, and knowing other cheap Behringer products, the construction is very solid. The panel, it's not, you know, bending when I push it, and especially when I use the ins and the outs, it's just not, you know, seating. The knobs are pretty solid and they have a good resistance. On other synthesizers from Behringer, sometimes the knobs are just a little bit loose. On this ones are rock solid. If I have to complain about something, I guess the manual is the worst part, and maybe the companion app. Not because it's bad, maybe because the Neutron had a much better interface. But really, at this price point, I cannot really complain. Right, so that's it. If you like what I do, please like the video. This channel is supported by viewers only. And if you want to buy me a coffee to say thanks and help the channel keep going on, you can. You have links at the description for PayPal, YouTube Thanks, and Patreon.